Jalen crouched down in front of his father, meeting his tired, defeated eyes. "I don't need to worry about you, Dad. I should have come back sooner, but I'm here now, and I'm going to fix this." James shook his head, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. "Fix what? The house? The money? It's gone, Jalen. All of it. What happens next will shock everyone. But before we start, let's do something fun. Comment your location below. Let's see who's watching from the farthest place. All right, let's begin." But Jalen wasn't ready to accept defeat. He stood, retrieving his laptop from his bag, and set it on the small motel room table. "It's not gone until I say it's gone," he said firmly. "We're going to figure this out, starting with her." He began pulling up files, making notes, and sending emails. Step 1. Understanding exactly what Annabelle had done and how. Jalen was no stranger to investigative work. His business empire had taught him the value of uncovering hidden truths. If there were legal documents, financial records, or any hint of foul play, he would find them. Over the next few days, Jalen pieced together the puzzle. He hired a private investigator, Marvin Ross, who came highly recommended for cases involving financial fraud. Marvin's network of contacts and access to restricted databases would be invaluable. Meanwhile, Jalen visited the county courthouse, requesting public records on the family home and the Carter family business, once a proud cornerstone of the community, now seemingly lost. What he discovered was staggering. First, the deed to the family home. It had indeed been transferred to Annabelle years ago under suspicious circumstances. The signature on the document appeared to be James's, but the sale price was far below market value. Even more troubling, the sale's timing coincided with a series of dubious tax filings under Annabelle's name. Second, the family business. Jalen learned that shortly after his mother's death, Annabelle had convinced James to take out a loan against the hardware store. The funds were supposedly for renovations, but the money had been funneled into an account under Annabelle's control. When the loan defaulted, the bank seized the property, and Annabelle quietly pocketed the remaining funds. But the most disturbing discovery was Annabelle's network of connections. She had ties to local politicians, bankers, and even law enforcement. Her power in the town extended far beyond the confines of their crumbling house. Jalen also spoke to a few locals, former neighbors, old family friends. Most were hesitant to talk, their voices hushed and nervous. Annabelle, it seemed, had built a reputation as someone not to be crossed. One elderly neighbor, her hands trembling, had only whispered, "Be careful, son. She doesn't lose." Jalen's jaw tightened. He had built an empire from nothing. He had faced corporate sharks, ruthless competitors, and media scrutiny. Annabelle was just another opponent, except this time, it was personal. This wasn't just about reclaiming his father's dignity. It was about justice. And he wasn't leaving town until he got it. The tires crunched against the gravel as Jalen pulled onto the long, winding road leading back to his childhood home. The town had changed, but not for the better. Boarded-up shops, cracked sidewalks, and vacant stares from weary townsfolk painted a picture of slow decay. The sight of it all twisted something deep inside him. This place, once filled with life, was now nothing more than a husk. Then he saw the house. His childhood home stood like a ghost of its former self. The white paint had peeled to a sickly gray. The once charming shutters dangled loosely, and weeds swallowed the front yard. Jalen exhaled, tightening his grip on the steering wheel before stepping out. Each step up the creaking porch felt heavier than the last. He knocked, the sound echoing in the still air. For a long moment, silence. Then the door swung open. Annabelle. She hadn't changed much. Her blonde hair still styled to perfection, her pearls sitting prim and proper against a crisp white blouse. But her eyes calculating, cold. The kind of eyes that knew secrets, and worse, knew how to keep them. "Well, well," she drawled, leaning against the doorframe. "Look who decided to grace us with his presence." Jalen ignored the venom in her tone. "Where's my father?" A smirk curled on her lips. "James is occupied at the moment," she said, stepping aside. "But do come in, it's been far too long." Inside, the house was worse than he imagined. Dust clung to every surface, the air was thick with neglect, and the floors, once polished to a shine, were worn dull with grime. But none of it compared to what he saw next. His father, on his hands and knees, scrubbing the floor with a filthy rag. Jalen's breath caught. James Strong. Calloused hands trembled as he scrubbed. His shoulders hunched as if the weight of the world sat on them. "Dad!" Jalen's voice cracked. James didn't look up. Annabelle's laugh rang out behind him. "Oh, don't mind him," she said, her voice laced with amusement. "He likes to keep himself busy, keeps the place livable." Jalen turned to her, his fists clenching. "What the hell is this?" Annabelle raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. "This is life, Jalen. Your father made his choices. He's a grown man." Jalen dropped to his knees beside his father, gripping his arm. "Dad, stop. You don't have to do this." James finally looked up, his eyes dull, lifeless. "It's fine, son. I'm fine." But he wasn't. And Jalen knew. This wasn't just neglect. This was control. Jalen wasted no time. That night, he met with Marvin, a longtime family friend and private investigator. "She's got him trapped," Jalen said, pacing. "She's drained the life out of him, out of that house. And I'm going to stop her." "You're stirring the hornet's nest," Marvin warned. "Annabelle has connections. People in this town still owe her favors." "I don't care," Jalen shot back. "She doesn't owe my father." But Annabelle didn't take threats lightly. The first sign of trouble came the next evening, a black SUV, tailing him through town. At first, Jalen dismissed it, but turn after turn, it stayed behind him. "Dad," he said slowly, gripping the steering wheel. "Stay calm." James glanced in the mirror, his face paling. "They're following us, aren't they?" Jalen nodded. "Yeah, but they're not going to scare us off." With a sharp turn, he veered onto a side street, weaving through the town's maze of narrow roads. The SUV followed, its engine growling like a predator closing in on its prey. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. That night, the attack came. Jalen and James returned home to find the door slightly ajar. Inside, the place was wrecked. Furniture overturned, papers scattered, and on the wall, in bold red paint, James sank into a chair, his face ashen. "This is my fault," he whispered. "I should have stopped her years ago." Jalen placed a hand on his shoulder. "No, Dad, this isn't your fault. It's hers." But even as he said it, unease crawled up his spine. Annabelle was getting desperate, and desperate people were dangerous. Jalen had one move left: exposure. He reached out to national media, brought in federal agents who had been quietly investigating Annabelle for weeks, and arranged for everything to go down at the house. When they arrived, Annabelle was waiting, calm, collected, but her eyes darted to the unfamiliar car that followed them. "Well," she smirked. "Reinforcements? Pity. None of this will help you." Jalen stepped forward, holding up a thick folder. "It's over, Annabelle. Fake loans, fraudulent deeds, bribes. I've got it all." Behind him, Marvin, a journalist, and two plainclothes federal agents emerged. Annabelle's smirk faltered. "This is my house," she spat, voice rising. "You have no right to be here." Jalen met her gaze, unwavering. "You stole this house, and now the truth is coming out." As the journalist started recording, Annabelle's responses grew erratic. She accused Jalen of fabricating evidence, of trying to destroy her out of spite. Then the agent stepped in. "Mrs. Annabelle Carter," one said, flashing a badge, "you're under investigation for multiple counts of fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy." Annabelle's face went pale. You can't do this." Jalen took a step closer, voice steady. "It's over." The agents led her away. As the car disappeared down the road, Jalen turned to his father. "We did it." James nodded, his eyes scanning the home. "It's not the same," he murmured, "but it's ours again." In the months that followed, Jalen transformed the house, not just into a home, but into the Carter Community Center, a space for families fighting injustice, a place of hope. On opening day, Jalen stood before the crowd, his father by his side. "This house has seen pain," he said, "but today it stands as a symbol of resilience." Applause erupted. For the first time in years, Jalen felt peace. Their battle wasn't just for a home, it was for a future. And they had won. The tension in the motel room was suffocating. The small space, though clean, felt too tight, too filled with unspoken words. Jalen watched his father, the once unshakable man who had taught him how to ride a bike and stand tall against the world, now reduced to someone who barely seemed to exist. "I don't know why you came back, son," James murmured, his voice hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken much in years. He kept his gaze fixed out the window, watching the neon lights of the empty street flicker in the night. "You've got your own life. No need to dig up the past." Jalen leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his jaw tight with restrained emotion. "Dad, this isn't just the past. She's still controlling you, still keeping you under her thumb. That's not living." James sighed, rubbing his temples. "You don't understand. It's not that simple. Annabelle, she doesn't lose." Jalen's stomach twisted with anger. "She already lost the moment I walked back into town." He reached into his duffel bag and pulled out a thick folder, setting it on the motel nightstand with a heavy thud. "I've got proof, Dad. Proof of her fraud, the fake loans, the bribes she's been paying to keep people quiet. She's built her empire on corruption, and I'm going to tear it down." James turned away from the window, his weary eyes meeting his son's. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into." Jalen clenched his fists. "And you don't know what I'm capable of. I didn't come back to lose." The next morning, Jalen woke to the sound of rain tapping against the window. It felt symbolic, like the town itself was crying, mourning years of injustice. He turned to see his father still in the chair, asleep, his face lined with exhaustion. It only fueled Jalen's resolve. By noon, he had assembled his allies. Marvin, his old friend and a skilled private investigator, sat across from him in the diner, flipping through the evidence Jalen had gathered. Next to him was Lisa Carter, an investigative journalist from a major national outlet who had taken an interest in the story. What Annabelle didn't know was that federal agents had also been watching her, waiting for the right moment to make their move. "This is airtight," Lisa said, her sharp eyes scanning the documents. "If we break this publicly and the feds step in at the same time, she won't be able to wiggle out of it." Marvin leaned back, arms crossed. "Are you sure you're ready for this? Once we set this in motion, there's no turning back." Jalen's grip on his coffee mug tightened. "I was ready the moment I saw my father on his knees scrubbing that damn floor." Lisa nodded. "Then let's take her down." That evening, the confrontation was set. Jalen had arranged for the meeting with Annabelle to take place at the family estate. He made sure the right people would be watching. When he and his father pulled up, the house looked even worse in the dimming light. The wraparound porch sagged, the once pristine white paint now a dull gray. Annabelle stood on the steps, her usual air of superiority, faltering as she spotted the unfamiliar vehicles pulling in behind Jalen's. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, but she masked it quickly. "Well, well," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "I see you've brought company. Pity none of it will help you." Jalen stepped forward, unfazed. "I wouldn't be so sure." He held up the folder, letting her see the weight of what was inside. "It's over, Annabelle. The fake loans, the fraud, the bribery, it's all in here. And I've got people who are very interested in hearing your explanation." Behind him, Lisa stepped out of her car, a recorder already in her hand. Marvin followed, along with two plainclothes federal agents who had been building their own case against Annabelle. For the first time, her confident mask cracked. Her gaze darted from Lisa to the agents, to Jalen, her mind racing for an escape. "This is my house," she snapped, her voice rising. "You have no right to be here." Jalen met her gaze, calm and unyielding. "You stole this house. You stole everything. But now the truth is coming out." The federal agents stepped forward, one of them flashing a badge. "Mrs. Annabelle Carter, you are under investigation for multiple counts of fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. We suggest you cooperate." Annabelle's face was drained of color. Her hands trembled as she backed away. You can't do this. This is my home." Jalen took one final step toward her, his voice steady. "It never was." The agents took her by the arm, leading her toward their car. As they disappeared down the driveway, Lisa turned to Jalen. Well, that was satisfying. He exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of years of injustice finally start to lift. His father, standing beside him, let out a breath Jalen hadn't even realized he'd been holding. "We did it," Jalen said quietly. James nodded, his gaze sweeping over the house. "It's not the same," he murmured, his voice tinged with sadness. "But it's ours again." In the weeks that followed, Jalen did more than just reclaim the house. He transformed it. The Carter Community Center was born, a place where people could find the help they needed, whether it was legal aid, financial education, or simply a safe space to rebuild their lives. James found his own purpose in the center, sharing his story and teaching others how to recognize and resist manipulation. Though the scars of his past remained, he had found a way to turn his pain into strength. Months later, at the grand opening of the center, Jalen stood on the newly rebuilt porch, addressing the crowd. "This house has seen its share of pain," he said, his voice strong. "But today, it stands as a symbol of resilience and hope. This isn't just a place for my family. It's a place for everyone who has ever felt powerless. This is your home, too." The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time in years, Jalen felt peace. The battle for his family's home had been long and grueling, but it had given birth to something greater, a legacy of hope, justice, and community. He turned to his father, the man who had taught him perseverance, and smiled. Together, they had reclaimed not just their home, but their future, and they weren't stopping there. Jalen crouched down in front of his father, meeting his tired, defeated eyes. "I don't need to worry about you, Dad. I should have come back sooner, but I'm here now, and I'm going to fix this." James shook his head, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. "Fix what? The house? The money? It's gone, Jalen. All of it." But Jalen wasn't ready to accept defeat. He stood, retrieving his laptop from his bag, and set it on the small motel room table. "It's not gone until I say it's gone," he said firmly. "We're going to figure this out, starting with her." He began pulling up files, making notes, and sending emails. Step 1. Understanding exactly what Annabelle had done and how. Jalen was no stranger to investigative work. His business empire had taught him the value of uncovering hidden truths. If there were legal documents, financial records, or any hint of foul play, he would find them. Over the next few days, Jalen pieced together the puzzle. He hired a private investigator, Marvin Ross, who came highly recommended for cases involving financial fraud. Marvin's network of contacts and access to restricted databases would be invaluable. Meanwhile, Jalen visited the county courthouse, requesting public records on the family home and the Carter family business, once a proud cornerstone of the community, now seemingly lost. What he discovered was staggering. First, the deed to the family home. It had indeed been transferred to Annabelle years ago under suspicious circumstances. The signature on the document appeared to be James's, but the sale price was far below market value. Even more troubling, the sale's timing coincided with a series of dubious tax filings under Annabelle's name. Second, the family business. Jalen learned that shortly after his mother's death, Annabelle had convinced James to take out a loan against the hardware store. The funds were supposedly for renovations, but the money had been funneled into an account under Annabelle's control. When the loan defaulted, the bank seized the property, and Annabelle quietly pocketed the remaining funds. But the most disturbing discovery was Annabelle's network of connections. She had ties to local politicians, bankers, and even law enforcement. Her power in the town extended far beyond the confines of their crumbling house. Jalen also spoke to a few locals, former neighbors, old family friends. Most were hesitant to talk, their voices hushed and nervous. Annabelle, it seemed, had built a reputation as someone not to be crossed. One elderly neighbor, her hands trembling, had only whispered, "Be careful, son. She doesn't lose." Jalen's jaw tightened. He had built an empire from nothing. He had faced corporate sharks, ruthless competitors, and media scrutiny. Annabelle was just another opponent, except this time, it was personal. This wasn't just about reclaiming his father's dignity. It was about justice, and he wasn't leaving town until he got it. The air smelled of damp earth and regret as Jalen Carter drove down the desolate road leading to his childhood home. The once thriving town now lay in decay, with cracked sidewalks and abandoned storefronts standing as silent witnesses to its downfall. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel as he turned onto the long dirt driveway, his heart pounding in his chest. The house was unrecognizable. Peeling paint, shattered shutters, and a yard overrun with weeds. It was a graveyard of memories. But the real nightmare lay inside. The moment he knocked, the door creaked open, and there she stood. Annabelle. Her blonde hair was flawlessly styled, her pearl necklace gleaming against her crisp blouse. But her eyes were sharp, calculating. They had always held power over this house, over his father, and now they burned into him like a challenge. "Well, well," she drawled, a smirk curling her lips. "Look who decided to grace us with his presence." Jalen ignored her venomous tone. "Where's my father?" She leaned against the doorframe, feigning boredom. "James is occupied at the moment, but do come in. It's been far too long since we've had a family reunion." Stepping inside, Jalen felt the chill of the past swallowing him whole. The air was thick with dust, the furniture worn and threadbare. And then he saw him, his father, on his hands and knees, scrubbing the floor with a filthy rag. His strong shoulders hunched, his once capable hands trembling with exhaustion. Jalen's breath caught in his throat. "Dad!" James didn't look up. Annabelle's laugh sliced through the silence. "Oh, don't mind him. He likes to keep busy. Keeps the place livable." Rage boiled inside Jalen as he turned to face her. "What the hell is this?" Annabelle arched a brow, her smirk unwavering. "This is life, Jalen. Your father made his choices." Jalen clenched his fists, his pulse a drumbeat of fury. "This stops now." Her smirk faltered for the briefest moment. Jalen helped his father to his feet, guiding him toward the door. As they walked past her, he leaned in, his voice low and steady. "I'm taking him, and I'm taking back everything you stole." As they drove away, the house stood behind them like a haunted ruin. But Jalen knew one thing: this wasn't over. The small motel was a far cry from the life Jalen was used to, but it was safe. His father sat by the window, staring at the world outside, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee like it was the only warmth he had left. "I don't know why you came back, son," James said quietly. "You have your own life. You don't need to worry about me." Jalen crouched in front of him, meeting his weary gaze. "I do need to worry. I should have come back sooner. But I'm here now, and I'm going to fix this." His father shook his head, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. "Fix what? The house? The money? It's gone, Jalen. All of it." But Jalen wasn't ready to accept defeat. He pulled out his laptop, his fingers flying over the keys. "It's not gone until I say it is." He dug into property records, financial statements, and legal documents. The deeper he went, the darker the truth became. Annabelle hadn't just manipulated his father. She had preyed on countless families, weaving a web of fraud and deception. That's when Marvin Ross, his private investigator, called. "She's been running a long con." Marvin's voice crackled over the phone. "She targets families in crisis, those who've lost loved ones or are drowning in debt. She gets close, gains control of their assets, and drains them dry. Your father wasn't her first victim, and if she gets away with this, he won't be her last." Jalen's grip on the phone tightened. "Tell me you have proof." "Oh, I have more than proof. I have the names of her accomplices. Bankers, local officials, even a sheriff or two. She's been buying her way into power for years." Jalen's stomach twisted. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. That night, he laid everything out for his father. James sat in silence, absorbing the weight of betrayal. When Jalen finished, his father's hands gripped the armrests of his chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. "I should have seen it," James whispered. "I let her do this." "You trusted her," Jalen said. "She took advantage of that. But it's not too late to fight back." His father met his gaze. A spark of the man he once was flickering to life. "Then let's fight." Jalen's plan was simple: expose Annabelle and bring down her empire. But he needed leverage. He needed her to slip up. And so he set the trap. At the town's annual gala, a place where Annabelle paraded her power, Jalen arrived uninvited, dressed in a sharp black suit. He turned heads as he walked through the grand hall, his eyes locked on the woman who had stolen everything. Annabelle's smile faltered when she saw him. "You've got some nerve showing up here." Jalen smirked. "I tend to have that effect." Before she could respond, a murmur spread through the crowd. Marvin had done his job well. Screens around the room flickered to life, displaying documents, fraudulent deeds, forged signatures, bank transactions leading straight to Annabelle. A local reporter, tipped off by Jalen, stepped forward with a microphone. "Annabelle, would you like to explain how you've been stealing from grieving families?" Annabelle's face paled. I don't know what you're talking about." Jalen leaned in, whispering just for her to hear. "Checkmate." Then, from the back of the room, a voice rang out. "Annabelle Carter, you're under arrest." The sheriff stepped forward, flanked by 2 officers. Annabelle's world crumbled in real time as she was led away in handcuffs, her carefully constructed empire turning to ash. Jalen exhaled slowly, his father stepping up beside him. James looked at him, pride shining through his weary features. "Your mother would be proud." Jalen swallowed the lump in his throat. "So would she of you." As they walked out into the night, the stars above seemed brighter. The fight was over. But their future? That was just the beginning. The house loomed before him, a skeleton of its former self. The once proud Carter estate now stood weathered and broken, a stark reflection of the man Jalen had found inside. His father, James Carter, had once been the backbone of this town, strong, respected. Now he was a shadow of himself, gaunt and defeated. Jalen's blood boiled as he helped his father into the passenger seat of his car. Annabelle's mocking smirk still lingered in his mind. "You don't just waltz in after all these years and make demands," she had sneered. "Your father knows his place." Not anymore, he thought. The fight for his family's legacy had just begun. As they pulled away from the crumbling house, James stared out the window in silence, his face unreadable, the weight of years of deceit pressed against his shoulders. Jalen glanced at him, gripping the wheel tighter. "I don't know why you came back, son," James finally muttered, his voice hoarse, filled with regret. "You've got your own life." Jalen pulled into a small motel and parked. He turned to his father, his voice firm. "I should have come back sooner. But I'm here now, and I'm going to fix this." Jalen wasn't naive. Annabelle wouldn't have stolen their home and business without covering her tracks. He needed proof, hard evidence. He set up his laptop, digging into financial records, deed transfers, and tax filings. But it wasn't enough. Enter Marvin Ross, a private investigator with a reputation for tearing apart financial fraud cases. Within days, Marvin uncovered a trail of deception. Annabelle had systematically drained the family, business, forged documents, and leveraged corrupt officials to silence any opposition. Over coffee, Mrs. Harden, an old family friend, whispered her warnings. "Annabelle, she's dangerous, Jalen. She doesn't just take, she destroys." Anyone who tried to stop her regretted it. But the real gut punch came when Marvin made his final call. "She's been running a long con," he revealed. "Your father wasn't her first victim, and if she gets away with this, he won't be her last." Jalen's knuckles turned white as he gripped the files. This wasn't just about reclaiming what was his. It was about justice. The morning air was thick with tension as Jalen approached the house again. This time, he wasn't here to ask questions. He was here for a reckoning. The door creaked open. Annabelle stood before him, her expression a perfect mask of amusement and annoyance. "Back so soon. What could we possibly have to discuss?" Jalen stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. He tossed a folder onto the coffee table. The papers fanned out like a cascade of damnation, fraudulent deeds, forged loans, proof of her connections to corrupt officials. For the first time, Annabelle's smug facade faltered, but it returned in an instant. "You always were good at playing detective," she purred. "But do you really think you can threaten me? This is my house, my town." Jalen leaned in, his voice razor-sharp. "Not for long. I have enough evidence to destroy you." and I'm not afraid to use it. Annabelle stepped closer, her whisper dripping venom. You don't know who you're dealing with. You think you can undo everything I've built? My roots run deeper than you can imagine. Jalen didn't flinch. He held her gaze, unwavering. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, a scared woman clinging to stolen power. And today, that power crumbles. The door behind him burst open. Heavy footsteps echoed through the house. Jalen turned, expecting Marvin, but the face he saw made his blood run cold. It wasn't Marvin. It was someone much worse. Jalen stepped out of his car, the crisp autumn air biting at his skin as he stared at the decaying remnants of his childhood home. The paint peeled like dead skin. Windows boarded up like the house itself was too ashamed to witness its own downfall. His father, James, sat on the porch, shoulders hunched, eyes hollow. Dad. Jalen crouched down in front of him, meeting his father's tired gaze. I should have come back sooner. I'm here now, and I'm going to fix this. James let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. Fix what? The house. The money. It's gone, Jalen. All of it. But Jalen refused to accept defeat. He pulled out his laptop, his fingers flying across the keys. Not until I say it's gone. We're going to figure this out, starting with her. Annabelle, his stepmother, a woman who had seamlessly slithered into their lives, feeding off their vulnerabilities like a parasite. Jalen wasn't new to investigative work. His business empire had taught him that every deception left a paper trail, and Annabelle's lies were no exception. He hired Marvin Ross, a private investigator with a reputation for exposing financial fraud. While Marvin dug into Annabelle's past, Jalen sifted through public records at the county courthouse. What he uncovered sent chills down his spine. The deed to the family home had been transferred to Annabelle under suspicious circumstances. James' signature was on the documents, but the ink, the style, the pressure of the pen, it didn't match. The family hardware store? Gone. Annabelle had manipulated James into taking out a massive loan for so-called renovations, only to funnel the money into her own account. When the loan defaulted, the bank seized the business, and Annabelle walked away with the remaining funds. But the most chilling discovery? Annabelle had ties, deep, corrupt ties, to powerful figures in town. Bankers, local politicians, even law enforcement. She wasn't just a thief. She was a predator. Jalen knew confronting her would be dangerous, but he had no choice. He had to see her reaction, to make her feel the weight of her crumbling empire. The house smelled like expensive perfume and deceit. Annabelle stood in the doorway, her perfectly pressed blouse and pearl earrings a stark contrast to the decay surrounding her. Well, well, she drawled, leaning against the doorframe. Back so soon. To what do I owe the pleasure? Jalen stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. We need to talk. Is that so? And what could we possibly have to discuss? He tossed a folder onto the coffee table. The papers spilled out like a confession waiting to happen. Fraud, forgery, tax evasion, your ties to corrupt officials. You're finished, Annabelle. For a split second, her mask cracked. But then she laughed. A cold, calculated sound. You always were good at playing detective, Jalen. But do you really think you can take me down? This is my house. My town. Jalen took a step closer, his voice steady. Not for long. I have enough evidence to bury you, and I'm not afraid to use it. Annabelle's smirk faltered, but her eyes gleamed with something darker. You don't know who you're dealing with, boy. You think you can waltz back in here and undo everything I've built? You have no idea how deep my roots go. Jalen leaned in, his voice a whisper laced with steel. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, a scared woman clinging to power she never earned. And I'm not going anywhere. That night, Jalen returned to the motel, but the weight of the confrontation clung to him. He knew Annabelle wouldn't take this lightly. The phone rang. Marvin's voice was tense. You've stirred the hornet's nest, Jalen. Annabelle's reaching out to her contacts. She's not happy. You need to watch your back. Jalen's jaw tightened. Let her try. I'm ready. But as he hung up, unease crept into his gut. The next day, as Jalen and James drove back from a meeting with Marvin, a black SUV appeared in the rearview mirror. At first, It was just another car, but as they turned onto side streets, it followed. Every turn, every stop. James' voice was tight. They're following us, aren't they? Jalen nodded. Yeah, but they're not going to scare us off. He took a sharp turn onto a side road, then another, weaving through the maze of the small town. The SUV stayed on their tail until Jalen suddenly pulled into a gas station, parking under the bright fluorescent lights. The SUV slowed, then sped past. James let out a shaky breath. She's sending people after us now. Looks that way, Jalen said grimly. She's desperate. That means we're getting close. But the worst was yet to come. That night, they returned to their motel room to find the door ajar. Inside, the place was trashed, papers scattered, furniture overturned, and scrawled across the wall in red paint. Jalen stared at the message, his pulse pounding. James sank into a chair, his face pale. She's not just playing games anymore. Jalen exhaled slowly, clenching his fists. Good, he said. Neither am I. A cold wind cut through the air as Jalen gripped the steering wheel, his eyes locked on the mansion ahead. Once a place of warmth and family, it now stood as a monument to deception and greed. His father, James, sat beside him, his hands trembling slightly as he stared out the window. Are you sure about this? James asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. Jalen exhaled, tightening his grip. More than ever, it's time we take back what's ours. The last few weeks had been a whirlwind of revelations. Annabelle, the woman who had slithered her way into their family, was not just a manipulator. She was a predator. Marvin's investigation had unearthed a web of fraud, forgery, and bribery so intricate that it was a miracle she had remained untouchable for so long. But today that changed. Jalen stepped out of the car, his every movement calculated. He had called for this meeting, ensuring that key figures, local media, attorneys, and even a few federal agents would be present. Annabelle's world was about to crumble, and he wanted every piece of it documented. The grand oak door swung open as Annabelle emerged, her expression calm, calculated, until she spotted the crowd gathering behind Jalen. This is private property, she sneered, crossing her arms. You have no right to be here. Jalen smirked, flipping open the folder in his hands. Oh, I have every right. And soon, the world will know exactly who you are. Annabelle's eyes darted over the documents, fraudulent deeds, falsified loan applications, signatures that weren't hers too. Use. For the first time, the confidence in her posture wavered. She recovered quickly. You think you can just waltz in here and undo everything? You don't know the lengths I'll go to keep what's mine. Jalen took a step closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You're right about one thing. I don't know the lengths you'll go, but I'm about to find out. She flinched, but her eyes hardened. You should have stayed away, Jalen. Now you've left me no choice. The words barely left her lips before the sound of screeching tires pierced the air. A black SUV sped toward them. Jalen barely had time to react before his father grabbed his arm, yanking him out of the way. The SUV slammed to a stop, just feet from where Jalen had stood. The doors flew open, and two men in dark suits stepped out. Annabelle's smirk returned. You wanted to fight, Jalen? You got one. The tension crackled like a live wire as Jalen straightened, his pulse hammering in his ears. He had anticipated resistance, but not like this. The men advanced, but before they could reach him, the sharp wail of sirens split the air. The very authorities Annabelle had bribed were now beyond her control. One of the federal agents Jalen had contacted stepped forward. Annabelle Carter, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and multiple counts of embezzlement. Annabelle paled. No, you can't do this. You have no proof. Jalen held up the folder. Oh, we have plenty. But don't worry. You'll have a long time to think about it behind bars. The handcuffs clicked around her wrists, her carefully crafted world crumbling before her eyes. As she was led to the waiting patrol car, she shot Jalen a final, venomous glare. This isn't over, she spat. You'll regret this. Jalen exhaled, watching as the car disappeared down the road. The weight that had pressed on his chest for years slowly began to lift. James placed a hand on his shoulder. You did it, son. Jalen looked up at the house, their home. A slow, victorious smile spread across his lips. "No, Dad. We did it." A storm brews in the distance, thunder rumbling low in the sky. Jalen grips the leather folder tightly as he stands before the crumbling mansion. The house that once symbolized power now reeks of decay, a perfect reflection of Annabelle Carter's reign. "Jalen, this isn't just about revenge. It's about justice. It's about taking back everything she stole." He takes a deep breath and steps forward. Beside him, James, his father, looks both nervous and determined. Their private investigator, Marvin, lingers nearby, phone in hand, recording everything. A journalist from a major national outlet stands poised, ready to capture the downfall of a tyrant. And in the background, two federal agents sit unnoticed in an unmarked car, waiting for their moment to strike. Annabelle Carter stands on the porch, her polished exterior a stark contrast to the dilapidated house. Her crisp white blouse and signature pearls are an attempt at power, but the flicker of fear in her eyes betrays her. Annabelle, mocking well. "Back so soon, Jalen? And I see you brought company. A pity none of them can help you." Jalen steps closer, his expression unwavering. He holds up the folder and lets it drop onto the steps. Papers spill out, evidence of fraudulent deeds, fake loans, and bribes to local officials. Annabelle's smirk falters for the first time. "Jalen, it's over, Annabelle. We have everything. And I've brought people who are very interested in hearing your explanation." The journalist steps forward, microphone poised. Marvin, holding an envelope, joins him. Journalist: "Mrs. Carter, care to comment on your extensive offshore accounts? How do you explain the missing millions?" Annabelle's confidence cracks. She glances at the unmarked car, her mind racing. But before she can respond, the car doors swing open, and the two federal agents step out, flashing their badges. "Federal agent: Annabelle Carter, you are under investigation for multiple counts of fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. We suggest you cooperate." A stunned silence hangs in the air. Annabelle stumbles back, her hands trembling. Annabelle, whispering, You can't do this. This is my home." Jalen steps forward, lowering his voice, ensuring only she hears. "Jalen, it was never yours, and now it never will be." The agents take her by the arms, leading her down the steps. She thrashes once, twice, before finally accepting her fate. As she's placed into the car, the reality of her fall sets in. The car disappears down the driveway, taking Annabelle and her empire with it. Jalen turns to his father. The battle is over, but the scars remain. "Jalen, we did it." James nods, his eyes scanning the house, both a sanctuary and a prison. His voice is quiet, almost haunted. "James, it's not the same, but it's ours again." Over the next few weeks, Jalen works tirelessly to restore the house. Contractors repaint the peeling walls. The broken shutters are replaced, and the air inside grows lighter, fresher, as if shaking off years of corruption. One evening, Jalen stands in the doorway, looking out at the now vibrant home. Marvin joins him, handing over a thick envelope, evidence that Annabelle's trial is moving forward. "Marvin, justice is slow, but it's coming." Jalen exhales, watching the sun dip below the horizon. A chapter has closed, but another looms just ahead. Jalen, softly, "Yeah, but at what cost?" A distant phone rings. Marvin answers. His expression darkens. "Marvin, Jalen, you need to see this." A breaking news alert flashes across the screen. Annabelle Carter escapes custody. Cue suspenseful music. The screen cuts to black. The air was thick with tension as Jalen stepped out of his car, the gravel crunching beneath his boots. The Carter family home loomed before him, its once proud facade now a broken relic of its past. Peeling paint, shattered windows, and an overgrown yard whispered the story of years of neglect. But Jalen wasn't here for nostalgia. He was here for justice. He clutched a folder filled with evidence, fraudulent deeds, fake loans, and enough proof to expose the corruption that had robbed his family. Inside, Annabelle Carter, his estranged aunt, ruled like a self-proclaimed queen, using lies and bribes to hold her throne. His father, James, sat beside him in the car, his fingers tapping nervously on the dashboard. "Are you sure about this?" James asked, his voice low. Jalen met his gaze with unwavering determination. "We have everything we need to take her down." He flipped open the file. "Fraud, forgery, tax evasion. She won't go down without a fight, but she's out of moves." James exhaled sharply. "She's dangerous, son. You don't know the lengths she'll go to protect herself." Jalen's jaw tightened. "I've faced bigger enemies. This time, it's personal." Jalen didn't wait for an invitation. He pushed open the front door, the old wood groaning in protest. Annabelle sat on the grand leather couch, dressed impeccably in a crisp white blouse and pearl earrings, an ironic contrast to the decaying home around her. "Well, well," she drawled, a smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. "Back so soon. To what do I owe the pleasure this time?" Jalen dropped the folder onto the coffee table, the document spilling out in a cascade of damning proof. "It's over, Annabelle." His voice was calm but carried the weight of finality. "We have everything. The fake loans, the fraudulent deeds, your bribes to officials, it's all in here." For the briefest moment, a flicker of fear passed through her eyes before she recovered, her smirk returning. "You always were good at playing detective, Jalen. But do you really think you can threaten me in my own house?" Jalen leaned in, his voice steady. "It was never your house to begin with." Then came the unexpected. A black SUV appeared in the driveway. The journalist Jalen had called stepped out first, followed by two plainclothed federal agents. Annabelle's smirk faded as reality crashed down on her. "This is my home," she snapped, her voice rising in desperation. "You have no right to be here." The agent nearest to her flipped open a badge. "Mrs. Carter, you are under investigation for multiple counts of fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. I suggest you cooperate." Annabelle took a step back, her hands trembling. "You can't do this." Jalen stepped closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. "It's over, Annabelle. You're done." As the agents escorted her to their car, she screamed, cursed, and fought. But it was futile. The journalist captured every moment, ensuring the world would see. The fall of Annabelle Carter. The Carter family home had been reclaimed, but for Jalen, this was just the beginning. Instead of merely restoring the house, he transformed it into something greater. The Carter Community Center, a sanctuary for families fighting their own battles against injustice. News of the center spread quickly, and donations poured in from across the country. Jalen's connections in the tech world secured funding, allowing the vision to come to life. His father, once broken and haunted by his past, now found purpose, hosting workshops to educate others on financial literacy and resilience. One afternoon, as Jalen oversaw the installation of a new playground on the property, James approached him, his voice steady. "You know," he said, looking around at life returning to the once-forgotten estate, "I never thought I'd see this place come back." Jalen smiled. "We made it happen, Dad. Together." Months later, at the grand opening of the Carter Community Center, families from all over gathered. Jalen stood on the rebuilt porch, his father beside him, as he addressed the crowd. "This house has seen its share of pain," Jalen said, his voice carrying over the hushed audience. "But today, it stands as a symbol of resilience and hope. This isn't just for my family. It's for everyone who's ever felt powerless. This is your home, too." The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time in years, Jalen felt peace. The battle for the Carter family home had been long and grueling, but it had given birth to something greater, a legacy of hope, justice, and community. Jalen looked at his father, the man who had taught him the true meaning of perseverance, and smiled. They had won the fight, but their story was far from over. Did this story touch your heart? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, how powerful was this tale? Smash that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a story that stirs your soul. For more heart-racing, emotional tales, tap the end screen now.